Welcome, everybody. Today we have Bob Kroeger. Bob has written a couple books, one being To the 14th Tee. He's been to Ireland, Scotland, England, and Wales and written a book on each of them. Today we're going to dive into his history with golf and all the experiences he's had. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Travel Rolly Podcast. Today we have Bob Kroeger. And today we're going to talk about, the books that he's written, his life, and how he has grown up in the world of golf. Thank you, Bob, for being on today.
Happy to be here.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
Bob, it's great to see you. Let's start at the beginning. How did you get into golf in the first place?
Well, I must have been about 12 or 13 up in Youngstown, Ohio, and my uncle played golf. He had played since he was a kid. And I think he talked me into it, trying it. And so my dad took it up for me. In fact, he stopped smoking cigarettes and he used all of his cigarette money to pay for our rounds of golf. How about that?
Wow.
Nice.
I taught myself with wiffle balls in the backyard, which he hated because he had a beautiful backyard. And I'd make these crummy divots. Oh, not another divot. And I bought a little book by Ben Hogan called Power Golf. It was 35 cents. I still have it. And that's how I started.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Now, as good a question, maybe better. How did you discover links golf?
Well, I was in the Navy, stationed in Spain, and got a chance to travel all throughout Europe. Saw everything. And there were some trips I could have taken to go over to the UK and Scotland. In fact, I was lucky because I had an internship at Bethesda Naval in Washington, D.C., and I met the detailer there. The detailer sends you here, there, so we knew him. And he was an Ohio State grad, which helped too. So he asked me where I wanted to go. One option I had, which I didn't take, was to Holy Loch, Scotland. And that's in a little area near Glasgow. And that would have been 1973, 74. Well, no, I want to go to sunny. I don't want to go to gloomy, dreary, rainy Scotland. I want to go to sunny Spain. So I took the subtender in Spain, and there was a little 18-hole golf course there, the only Navy golf course in Europe. And in the summertime, it got hot there, 100, 120. It was dry heat, though. It was like Albuquerque, Arizona. But the grass turned to sand, so it was kind of like links golf. So that was my first introduction.
Yeah. And when did you first travel to Scotland to play golf?
Yeah, and what got me over there, believe it or not, was giving a lecture at a dental research convention in Dublin, Ireland. And I thought to myself, gosh, I am so close to Scotland. So a friend of mine came with me, and we took a side trip to Scotland. And there were no golf guides at the time, you see. But, that's like most new players. You want to, new to Scotland, you want to play the big course. So we played Prestwick and St Andrews and all the big courses. And I loved links golf. And I eventually met David Hamilton. But the trip was sort of funny because our flight into Atlanta was delayed. We barely made it in time. So we arrive in Dublin with no luggage and no golf clubs. So meanwhile, we're flying over from Dublin to Prestwick Airport. In those days, you could take a little puddle jumper over to Prestwick Airport. And this fella on the plane is telling, don't worry about rental cars. My friend had arranged a rental car. And the guy said, you can negotiate with them, bring the rates down. But my friend already had a reservation, right? So we get in Prestwick and we're kind of late. And there's nobody with a sign with the rental car that my friend had reserved. And so we didn't have a rental car. And the only thing that was available was a van. And so we took a taxi from the airport in Prestwick down to our bed and breakfast, which I had arranged. And there was somebody there. And thank God he knew a local rental car guy. So we played let's see, Prestwick, St. Nicholas, I think, and we played Turnberry in tennis shoes and just the clothes on the airplane. That's all we had.
My goodness.
And rental clubs.
You know
That's
how to
great.
fix all those problems?
Yeah.
Sign with
and it was
Royal
hot,
Links.
and it was a hot day in Turnberry. It was probably 80 degrees.
Wow.
Yeah, no
It's
sunblock.
interesting. What's interesting when you start talking about Prestwick, we had a gentleman on a couple of weeks ago on the podcast. You'd love this guy. He's 84 now, and he lives here where I live in Peachtree City. And he was a pilot with Delta, and he was in the Air Force, and he was so good at golf. They just let him play golf and represent the Air Force. And he flew into Prestwick and played Troon. And the secretary, this would have been in the mid 60s, secretary said, well, I'll come out and collect you. And picked him up to the airport, got him out, let him play for free, dropped him back.
Kurt Wagner. But the other one, Hayden, that's interesting, he mentioned Prestwick, St. Nicholas. We've got a friend, Murray Bothwell, who's a member there. Bothwell. That's what I was thinking of.
He thinks it's the greatest golf course in the world, even though he grew up on Murray.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But
yes, of course.
Now,
of course.
Yeah, how many trips in total did you make to the British Isles for golf, would you say?
Okay, I knew that was coming up. Well, all my sheets are at home. I have every course I played, 18 or 9 holes or whatever, at the par, and what I shot and what I thought of it and the weather conditions I played in. But I played probably 320 or so, mostly links courses.
Gotcha. And you're
320, Hayden.
That's incredible. What's your number, Jeff?
My number is, and by the way, I don't know anyone who has more than I do, except you, Bob. And I've got 85, but mine are all links courses. I haven't played any inland courses. Are you still a member of Dornoch or Royal North Devon?
I am a lifetime member of Royal North Devon. And that happened because when I was first going over there, I met a fellow in Cincinnati, Mort Ullman, who was a golf historian, a real estate guy. And he was a golf antique dealer. In fact, he's written some books, a wonderful book on golf antiques. He was kind of ostracized from the Golf Collectors Society, but he was very knowledgeable. And he said at the time, the course club was looking for some of these overseas lifetime memberships. So a couple $100. I said, why not? So I played it twice. So I haven't got my money's worth, but it's okay because it's very historic and it's the first links course in England. Now, Dornoch, on the other hand, was a different story. When we first played there, I met Donald Booker Milbourne, who's probably deceased by now, God love him, but he was quite a character. And he was the sheriff of Inverness.
Wow.
Do you know what a sheriff is?
I don't know specifically what it means over there.
Yeah, it's like a county judge. Anyway, he was a grand fellow. We had time and we had matches, and I remember one time we had a match and we're taking pictures. He said, "You Americans amaze me. You take all these pictures. Can't you remember?" I'll never forget that. And so he told me about the membership there, and I joined. And when I took my oldest son there, we did not have a match with anybody. It was becoming on the golf tours, in beautiful shape at the time, knee-high, pretty thick rough. You miss the fairway, you're gonna have trouble finding your ball.
Yeah.
So we played behind 4 Americans. Each had a caddy. They were from California, right? And about every 3rd or 4th hole, one of them would actually hit the fairway. And they were slower than you can't believe, you know. And we're used to playing golf in 3.5 hours over there. So we're plodding along, and they don't ask us to play through. It's just the 2 of us. so finally on the 18th hole, all four of them are in the crap. So one caddy looks back and he feels so bad. And even though it wasn't his position, he said, go on through. So we hit our drives, walking through, and I was talking to one of them, and he said they were from California. He said, boy, it's a tough course, isn't it? I'm thinking, let's see, you must have missed golf etiquette 101 somewhere along the line because you should have waved us through a long time ago. And when I realized it was on all the tours and attracted guys like this, I knew I was not going to play in 3.5 hours. So I love the course. Believe me, it's a wonderful golf course.
Yeah.
So no longer.
Well, I think that Royal North Devon down in Cornwall is, we were talking earlier before we started recording this, that's what we might call a diamond in the rough. And in reality, it's just one of the best, just a fantastic golf course. I mean, there are a bunch of them down there that no one's ever heard of, like
Right.
Trevose and St Augustine. And so do you call it Royal North Devon or do you call it Westward Ho?
Both.
Uh,
Both, but you missed the course down there.
what's
Royal
that?
Royal North Devon is in Devon, not in Cornwall.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right.
The Cornish people would take offense to that. I could care less, but they are very, very much like the Basques of Spain. They want to be independent.
Yeah.
It's just a little corner, very quirky but lovable. And we played a course there called Perranporth.
Yes. Yeah. I haven't played there, but I've heard wonderful things.
Oh, marvelous course. And we were playing with two members and it was raining. And they were both on the older side. So the one guy says, Bob, I'd love to play with you, but it's pretty nasty out there. And I've just decided at this point in my life, I'm going to pass on days like that. So the three of us went out and we got soaked. The one guy quit after 9. And then it got nice. And by the time we finished, our Gore-Tex suits were perfectly dry because of the wind.
Yeah.
But it's like, the locals call it's like the face of the moon. It's wonderful.
Yeah. We've got to get there. That's you belong to 2 clubs. I belong to a club up in northern Scotland. I'd like to join another one, maybe down that way, maybe something in Ireland, but I'm really excited for Hayden to join a club over there because there's nothing like making friends like you have in North Devon when you can arrange games and it's great fun. The one course I haven't played in England that I'm dying to get to, and I know that you've played it, is Royal West Norfolk. What did you think of that?
Nice, good course. That's a nice links course. Very nice links course. Now, is that the one that's near the water and you can drive there as long as the tide is not in?
Right.
Is that the one?
That's
yes.
the one.
Oh,
yeah.
The clubhouse is magnificent.
Yeah.
It's all old oak and it just reeks of history. Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you get there if the tide's up? Off road?
Unless you want to take a boat.
Wow.
No, you take a boat. That's it. Yeah, you have to wait.
I mean, can you imagine that here? They would never.
Oh, they build a big cement barrier to cross over, but it's just the way. No, that's a good one. Fantastic. Yeah.
So, Hayden, I know you've got some questions. I don't want to ask all the questions.
We've talked about some of the main courses like Dornoch and Devon. What are some of the courses that people wouldn't know about that are some of your favorites?
Oh man, we could talk forever. I don't know. Have you played Duff House Royal?
No.
Duff House Royal is in the northern coast, not maybe within an hour of Moray, not far from Lossiemouth, and it was designed by Alistair Mackenzie.
Wow.
And so it's like playing a miniature Augusta National.
Wow.
Oh, it's delightful. I mean, it's not long. It's not long at all. but you get his greens
Yeah.
up and down, left and right, and unless somebody has come in there and decided to level them off to Americanize it.
I'm familiar with it, and I've had the opportunity to play there. I just haven't done it yet. I'm glad. Now you've whet my appetite.
Duff House Royal, yeah.
Duff House Royal.
I know you played Bodegarten.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful golf course. It's inland.
Yeah.
It's not linksy, but the fairways are usually pretty firm.
Yeah.
Beautiful views of the mountains. And I love Lockery too. I know you played there.
Yeah.
Love Lockery. That's where I saw that sign after the 13th green to the 14th tee, and there were weeds all around. You could hardly see it. I said, that's it. That's Scotland. It's rustic. It's unkempt. It's the opposite. It's the opposite of Augusta National.
Right.
I mean, Augusta National Masters.
Every time, every sentence he says, Hayden, it reminds me of something. So my favorite part of Pitlochry is the Edredauer Distillery. Have you been there?
I've not been to that one. No.
Now, that's the smallest distillery in Scotland. The last time I was there, they had 5 full-time employees. We fell in love. My buddies and I have fallen in love with Edredauer, and you can buy it I'm sure you can buy it in Cincinnati. We can buy it here. But that leads to, you talked about Pitlochry, and that leads to a couple of things. One, he wrote this book called To the 14th Tee, and it's one of 6 or 7 books that you've written around golf. And most of them were guidebooks, but you've got 2 books that are, in my mind, particularly interesting. One is To the 14th Tee, and we'll let you talk about that in a moment. But the other one that you wrote had to deal with single malts. So the name of that was The Secrets of Islay, Golf Marathons and Single Malt. And I've ordered that, and it hasn't come yet, Bob, but I can't wait to read that one.
Yeah.
So you're a single malt guy too.
Well, my classmate became an aficionado of Glenmorangie. When we were up in the Dornoch area, we went there. I cannot remember going through that distillery, but he remembers it very vividly. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And he became an aficionado big time. So,
well, there's on the way south from there, from Tain, they've built a new McAllen visitor center that is spectacular. But I've been to Glenmorangie, I've been to Glenfiddich, Glenmurray. I'm missing one out near the Isle of Skye, Edredauer. There's a new one that you may not have heard of yet. That's a lowland Scotch that's made at Kingsbarns. They put a distillery there right next to the golf course, and that's quite nice too. So
I had some of that. It was nice. He brought me a little miniature bottle.
Yeah,
very smooth.
So tell us about those 2 books in particular. To the 14th Tee and
To the 14th Tee, okay.
Secret.
To the 14th Tee was about 2 trips I took with my 2 oldest sons after they finished high school. Rob and I went north, John and I went south, and then to the East Coast. And I really was excited about taking my oldest son there because they all played high school golf and they were good golfers. They played for 2 older sons played for St X, which is a state champion team, and the 2 younger ones played for Moeller. So they've all been used to very high levels of golf, which is nice. But yet they hadn't played links courses, and it's much different than playing a parkland course, as you know.
Right.
You don't have that little spongy area underneath the golf ball, and you better hit it purely, baby. You're not gonna like it anyway. So when my oldest son and I went there, we flew into Glasgow, and we played a couple courses around Glasgow. One was called Cardross, Cardross, which is a very nice course, inland course, not far from the airport. And it was kind of a windy, cold. We would always go just before Memorial Day, always last week in May, before the visitors got there. And it was overcast. And the next day it was kind of overcast, went a little further north. And next day it was overcast and maybe a little bit of rain. And so Rob said, "Dad, I got a question. Does it ever sunshine over here?" I said, "Yeah, sometimes it does." So then we played put lockery. And the first hole, brilliant sunshine, it's beautiful. We played the first hole, and he's got a little jacket on and no hat, and he had a pretty short haircut, not much exposure on top. So anyway, the next hole, it starts to rain and windy, and then it hails. And then it got sunshine again. So we had about 4 seasons in one hole. I said, "Welcome to Scotland, dude." Yeah,
That's
yeah, it
funny.
was good.
Well, and tell us how you named the book.
Yeah, and that's where the name of the book, that little sign from the 13th Green, the directional sign, which was almost obscured totally by weeds and grass. And that's when I felt that the book deserved to be named that.
Yeah. Well, the thing that stood out, and I recommend the book highly to the 14th tee. It's literally fantastic, particularly if you're thinking about going over there. But it's a great golf read, regardless. And Hayden, what I found most interesting was that everywhere they went, they weren't always successful, but they attempted to get a match with members.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it was typically, a lot of times it was other fathers and sons, and sometimes it was two members. And, I love that idea, because one of the things that we do, Bob, we like to set up Ryder Cup matches for our clients.
Oh, that's great.
Right.
That's great. Yeah.
So Scott's Craig is one that said, "Hey, Jeff, we'd love to have some of your people come over." Scott's Craig is a fantastic little links. My club, I can easily do that. But I'm certain that if I called up any of the smaller courses, they'd be more than happy to accommodate you with setting up matches with their members. I don't think Troon or Turnberry or Carnoustie are going to be doing that, but the Murrays of the world and the Royal North Devons of the world would be happy to accommodate you. So
that's correct.
Yeah,
that's correct. That was a big part of the golf over there for me. And you learn about the people that way too.
Yeah. Well, you've written books about golf in Scotland, England, Ireland, and Wales. So the logical question is, Northern Ireland. What's your favorite country to play links golf in?
Well, my heart's in Scotland. I played most of the courses I've played are in Scotland. And the funny thing is, half of my ancestry is from Ireland. So on that first trip we took, I had the preconceived notion that the Irish would be friendly and hospitable and kind and generous, and to a degree they were. And then the other part was the Scots. I've heard they're reserved and they're quiet and they're kind of tight and so forth. And I found just the opposite. I mean, they were generous, they were kind, very meek, very, very humble, not the braggadocios that sometimes come over from the big courses in the States, where they think, well, I won't get into that, but they think they just can't make a mistake. But they're just lovely people. And I've had a lot of good experiences over there.
Well, you mentioned too, and I know Hayden's chomping at the bit to ask some questions, but the thing that I hate to see, and I know you feel the same way, or you must feel the same way, when you pull up to a course and then in rolls a big busload of Americans, and they spill out like, where's the cart barn? Where, how do I get a beer around this place? And you're like, literally the ugly Americans spill out of those vans. But so I think what's interesting in your books, you're pretty blunt about your assessment of some of the courses, and I mean that as a compliment, right? If you don't like it, you say it. It's not, well, they're all wonderful, because some are better than others. So what are your thoughts on, what do you think's the most overrated course in the British Isles?
Okay, some of your listeners won't like this, but in my opinion, and I'm not a golf course architect, although I know quite a bit about it, the old course at St Andrews is the most overrated golf course in the UK. I'm sorry, Hayden. I know you've got the hat on and you've got the sign up there.
It's okay.
You got the Clarence jug right behind you. I do. Now, historically, no, it is a very historic course, no question about it. And it was there that old Tom Morris took it from 22 holes to 18 holes. And he's the one that's given us the 9-hole course and the 18-hole course. So it's very, very historic. In fact, when he designed courses in the 1890s, he would refer to it as the St Andrews Standard. Okay, I mean that was a course, but it's pretty flat. It's pretty aesthetically unappealing. It's got some nice bunkers. It's got some great stories. The Deacon Sign bunker. You're probably familiar with that. It's out in the middle. It's a wee bunker. It's not much of anything, but you see this minister play golf there, and he was in it all the time. So eventually he said, I've spent so much time here in this world. I hope when I die, you can put my ashes in there. It's like it's been all of eternity in it. So it's called the Deacon Sign bunker. So stories like that are great. There's no question about it. And the tournaments that have been played there are magnificent. I mean, you can't forget Doug Sanders, who had a chance, just a simple 2-putt on the 18th hole to be the Open champion. That would have changed his career. Yeah. And if you do a YouTube search on that, you'll see him with about a 2 or 3 foot putt for his par, and he did not mark it. He did not wait. Why? Because he wanted to get it over with. And when you're nervous, the blade doesn't cooperate and you're often short and right. And he admitted he did it too fast. But stories like that are just plain wonderful. I mean, John Daly's playoff was great.
Constantino Rocca, that was amazing.
Yeah. So it's great stories, but compared to a Turnberry or a Carnoustie, I mean, in my opinion, it's lacking. The other course, which I think is horribly overrated, is Troon. Now, why do I say Troon? Yeah, they got the postage sample, which is okay, but it's just one par 4 line with gorse on both sides, or winds, as Scott would say, on both sides. And when you play a golf course, you often remember certain holes. Okay, you got the postage stamp hole, but outside of that in Troon, I can't remember too much of anything. But I do remember when we played there. I had 3 or 4 guys with me, and we had a tee time of maybe 8:30 on the championship course, and then lunch, and then the Portland course in the afternoon. So ready to go. It's a nasty day. It's windy. It's rainy, and this bus comes in, and the starter says, "I'm so sorry, guys. I've got to put these 12 American insurance agents who won these trips over here. They've all got these matching red, white, and blue rain suits on. They're hitting the ball left and right, and in the gorse. And after 5 hours, that wasn't a whole lot of fun. So I think if you grease the starter's palm enough, you get cooperation, because they had to fly on a helicopter to St. Andrews to play the afternoon round. I said, oh, okay, well, that's great. And so anyway, I don't have any good memories on Troon. And even if I didn't have that memory, I would say the same thing I feel.
Yeah, interesting. So what courses, again, Hayden, this will be my last question for a while.
You're fine. Listen, y'all have the experiences. I was going to say that once I do experience these courses, I'll come back and let you know what I think of your descriptions, but I can't say anything for myself right now.
Oh, you're young. You got plenty years ahead of you.
Yeah.
So what would you say is the most underrated course in the British Isles, Bob?
Well, if you take away the distance factor, and I know the big trend now is to make a 7,000-yard course. Well, I will tell you this. A couple of days ago, I played a course I'd never played of called Royal St Augustine, not too far from here. Designed by a fella I'd never heard of, Commins. He's done 4 courses or so. Never heard of the guy. And it was the most difficult 6,500-yard course I have ever played in my life. Some people would consider it unfair. You can have a beautiful drive down the middle, hit a mogul, and it's often a waste bunker, or it's in the water, you know. So I think there's a lot to that. And so I'm not a big fanatic on distance, but courses like Brora, where you have that cows with the biggest heads on them I've ever seen. These cows have huge heads, Hayden. You cannot believe it.
Yeah. And
they have freedom to walk on the golf course. So why don't they walk on the greens? Because there are electric fences there to keep them off. I mean, that's old time golf. It's
Hayden, there are sheep and cattle grazing on Brora. And they've got a ring about 12 or 18 inches off the ground that's electrified, so that the hooved animals can't get on there, but
mess up the green. Yeah.
But Bob, to your point about length, I know you're a fan of Cullen, and Cullen's not long. I mean, that's really short, right?
Yes. That's an interesting course. They've got some interesting holes. A course I really liked was called Fraserborough, and that's in the Northeast. You probably played it. It's a links course. Played it once or twice, and I really liked the layout. It was fair. It had some length to it, but it wasn't overly long. Nice greens. I don't know who designed it off the top of my head. I thought that was, and one of my favorites is a course right next to Royal Aberdeen. And anytime you get Royal on a course, it's high cotton, you know. Well, Mercer didn't get that, and it's right next to what you might call a city dump. So sometimes if the wind's just right, you get a whiff of that. So that's not too pleasant, but it's a lovely course. And these big humps in the fairway, just so much fun to play. I really like Mercer, and I think that's underrated.
I agree with you. I think that Mercer and just down the road from there, Panmure, are 2 fantastic links courses. And I think one of the problems is, Bob, that when you I can think of a couple examples. If you take the new course and put it next to the old course, you know, everyone's like in love with the old. So the new is, you know, the poor little brother or whatever. I really like the Cashin course next to Ballybunion as an example. I think it's a really nice track. And if it wasn't next to Ballybunion, it'd be a fantastic destination course of its own. And then courses like you just mentioned, Mercer next to Royal Aberdeen, it's, you know, you put, you know, like if I said, what paintings in the Louvre is hanging next to the Mona Lisa, you can't name it, right? I mean, who cares? No one's there looking at that. Everyone's there for the Mona Lisa. So
That's right.
Okay, Hayden, go ahead. I'm done.
I've been wondering what's next on the you know, for books. Are you planning any new books here soon?
I'm done with golf books, but I'm now a historical preservationist, in that I preserve early American history by doing a painting of an old barn and writing a story about it.
Gotcha.
And I finished one book already called Historic Barns of Ohio, which is a really good book, published by the History Press, which is a small press in South Carolina. And I'm not bragging or anything, but they did a great job. It's a great cover, great pages, and So now I'm working on a book on round barns, not rectangular, round barns. I know that sounds crazy. And most Americans have never heard of one, much less seen one.
Yeah.
But I won't get into that. But no, I'm finishing golf books. My last book was, I thought, a pretty good one. I wished I'd done one thing differently, and that's Secrets of Islay, which was a wonderful trip back into history, back into the days of the Vikings. The island is that old, yes, and just a lot of interesting stuff there.
Yeah.
I just wish I had started differently. Have you seen the movie called Patton, about General Patton's march into Germany? It's called George C. Scott.
Right.
It's called Patton. Well, he was a general in World War II. And it starts off with a scene in North Africa where Rommel had butchered our boys and a lot of bodies lying around and everything. Well, in my book, at the end, I talk about a soldier who was from Islay, and he was involved in that. And I wish I'd started off with that. But other than that, I was happy with that golf book. And the reason I played on Islay was because of a course that was designed in the 1890s by Willie Fernie called the mockery. And the mockery is a word in Scotland which means a short-haired grass that grows in the rough. And in those days, blind shots were all the rage. If you've read Horace Hutchinson, the early golf writer from England, who was a great golfer himself, he wrote a sentence that I'll never forget, talking about a blind shot. You're walking up this ridge that you've hit your ball over, and you're wondering, and all this anticipation, your heart's thumping as to how close your ball ended up to the hole. And I said, you got it right there. That's a blind shot. And even Pete Dye will introduce blind shots. He used to belong to Long Cove and Hilton Head, and he had a little par 4 there where if you took a risk, you could go right down along the water and get a straight shot to the green. But if you didn't and went safely to the right, you had to go over a little hump. You had a blind shot. So he loved that blind shot too. And in 18 holes, Hayden, 15 blind shots. Well, Americans hate blind shots. Yikes. They do. That's just the way it is. And
I'm not very fond of them.
But the Scots like them, and I played many courses of blind shots, and they're fun. Yeah. So there were 15. So I was interested in this, right? So we went over there. We're lucky to get there. Actually, it's hard to get to it. Yeah. First time we went there, the gales were up. Gales in Scotland mean winds of 90 to 120 miles an hour, knock over trees, kill people. So we were stuck in Campbeltown for an extra day because they shut down the ferries. These humongous ferries that take 50, 60 cars and supplies and trucks wouldn't go. So we had our trip shortened. We met a wonderful person there and played the course. And at the time, I think it was in receivership. He went through a couple of those. Ended up being purchased by a wealthy British money manager, I think. And he somehow got the idea that he needed to Americanize this golf course. So he got an architect in there and eliminated almost all the blind shots, and it broke my heart.
Yeah.
Just plain broke my heart. So I won't go back there anymore.
Well, I'll tell you,
they've got 8 single malt distilleries.
Well, getting stuck in Campbeltown an extra day is not too bad because that's a big distillery town too. There's plenty to drink in Campbeltown. But I'll tell you what, when you were talking about these blind shots, I can't wait for Hayden to play Prestwick. Right when you come to that par 3 Himalayas and they put a white stone up on the hill.
That's right.
And that's the exact feeling that you feel is, I wonder how close my ball is.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
And then Hayden, the 17th hole, they've got the Alps. Okay, so you've got to hit over another stone to a green that's hidden. Yeah. And between the mountain and the green is the Sahara.
That's
They
right.
built an enormous bunker. I mean,
Yeah.
and when I played there, I agree with you. Americans prefer not to play, but if you can embrace it because you're there, it's just pure fun, right? I mean,
That's right.
yeah, I love that. Okay, Hayden, go ahead. I feel like I'm monopolizing.
Well, I'm gonna take one of your questions. Y'all have a connection with Murray, and you were friends with the club historian, Mr. John McConaughey, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
I remember actually getting to interview Neil, his son.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about John and
Well,
y'all's relationship.
John McConaughey was an interesting fellow. He was the town physician, along with his wife, who was also a physician. She delivered babies, and he took care of everybody else. So they were the town docs for many, many years. And John was a low single digit for a long time, but he came down with congenital arthritis. So he had to have 2 steel knees and 2 steel hips. He was also pretty good at English, because David Hamilton, who I met a long time ago, got me into the golf books, had an old printing press, and he would write these little vignettes about some aspect of Scottish history, make a little book, send it to John to proofread, because David's English wasn't the best, but he had a good flair for history. So he'd hand crank out, he'd get the typeset in Edinburgh, and he'd hand crank out each page, have them bound with leather and the collector's items. So anyway, John did that. And so when the one time we went over there, I brought 2 American friends, both low single digits. So I wanted to have a match because I like to play matches. So I took on John with his 2 steel knees and his 2 steel hips. In fact, Hayden, whenever he would swing, you'd hear click, 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 click. And in fact, he had to petition the golf club to get a golf cart in those days. That was maybe 30 years ago or so.
And he was a former captain.
That's right. And so he had to wait about 3 years, but he was granted a little 3-wheeled cart, big enough for him and his golf bag. So that was fine. So we're trying to figure out a match, right, against these two low handicappers, and they were good. So I said, John, you're going to need some strokes here, because you're older, and you got the steel, everything. And he said, well, I'll take 3 bisques. Well, we didn't know what a bisque was. That's BISQUE, right? Okay, so we get off there, and my friends take an early lead. They're 3 up or something. I got hot for about 6 holes, and we were only 1 behind. Maybe it was square, I don't know, a number 15 or 14 or 16, whichever is that par 3. So John gets up, he knocks it on the green, makes 2 putts. And my friends had the honor at that time. And matches over in Scotland are very much in tune with golf etiquette. So John walks up to the tee and says, I think I'll take my bisque. And at that time, we learned what a bisque was. And that's a stroke you can take after the hole's finished, before the next tee shot is taken. So John's 3 was a birdie. We won the hole. He had 2 more left, and we had maybe 3 holes to go. And so Bill said, oh, now I know what a bisque is. We're screwed. And we won easily. So, but that was a great experience, and he was a great man, and I enjoyed my time.
And you were able to stay in his home, right?
We went to the home. I don't remember if we stayed there or not. I came back there a second time. And this is a funny story too. And if you give me the link, I'll send this to my classmate. My classmate's an oral surgeon, and he thinks he's a good golfer, but he wants a lot of strokes. But anyway, and he's in the Secret Isla too. But anyway, we're playing the second course at Moray. It wasn't the championship course. We played 2 rounds that day. This is the second course, and there's a par 4 dogleg right, and I hit my drive a little bit to the right, and he swears that I hit a car and it bounced back over the gorge into the fairway. But I was trying to explain to him, no, that was a deliberate duck hook that I took over the road and back into the fairway. So we have an argument about that. So he'll enjoy this podcast. Believe me, he will.
That's fantastic. Well, I was Hayden. I was telling Bob that in his honor of having played Murray several times, my background is a view of Murray from the clubhouse. But that's a wonderful story.
Yeah, it's a cool background. That's what I was thinking it was.
Go ahead, Hayden.
You want to hear some fun courses to play?
Yeah. I wanted to hear one of the questions that Hayden and I had was like, what's the most pure fun over there for you?
Okay.
Courses that are just
I'm going to tell you some fun courses to play. They're off the beaten track, but in my opinion, they're worth it. The first one is near Stirling. That's where you got the big statue of William Wallace, the big monument to William Wallace,
right?
Who beat the English. You've all seen Braveheart. I know that about a dozen times. Right. So this course is called the Bridge of Allen. It's a 9-hole course designed by old Tom Morris. It's an inland course, and it's not long. The first hole is about 240 some yards straight uphill. In the old days with the gutty ball, it was a par 4, right? Well, now it's a par 3, and there's a stone dike, a stone wall that's about 20 yards in front of the green, straight across the fairway. They had, I think it was the 8th or 9th hole, a beautiful 2-tiered green, but I've heard they've leveled it off, which is a shame if they have. Maybe they haven't, maybe they kept it, but it's just a fun thing. And to play with members, priceless, be wonderful.
Yeah.
Another course I love is Blackwater Foot. Now this is on Arran. Arran's the island just across from Turnberry, right? You take a ferry from Ardrossan to get out there, pretty easy to get to. And the official title is the Shishkin Golf and Tennis Club, right? Well, this used to be 9 holes and 18, then the wars came into play. So it ended up being 12 holes, right? And
12 beautiful.
12 holes. Well, some people think so. I did happen to look it up just a few weeks ago when you mentioned this podcast. And this one fellow said he thought it was really ridiculous to pay 10 pounds or something for 12 holes or whatever it was. But anyway, he missed out on the fun, especially the 3rd hole, which I think is called the Shelf. And I think that's on my golf guide book. But it's a downhill par 3 to the water's edge, rocks galore. And on the right side is this huge outcropping of stone, a big cliff. So if you slice the ball, you're going to find that. But it's straight downhill. It's a wonderful golf hole. There's another par 3. They have a couple of interesting par 3s where you hit over a dune. So it's a blind shot. So you don't know. So how do you know when the group's off the green? Well, there's a cable that goes all the way underneath the ground from the tee to the green, and there's a lever on both sides. So when you get to the green and you get finished, you pull the lever down, which raises it up next to the tee. So you know it's time to go. And there's another fun course that you've got to play. Maybe you've played Port Patrick, I don't know, but it's a wee course. It's a wee 18. It's down just south of Turnberry on southwest corner of Scotland, and it's a short 18 holes. If you play it in the wind, as John and I did, that was our second day in 14th tee, and it was windy. But then there's a 9-hole course too, a 9-hole par 3 course. Got 9 par 3s. Take a guess how many of those 9 holes are blind shots. Take
7.
a guess. Go on.
7.
Go on, give me a guess.
9.
You're close. 8.
We were right there.
8. Oh, so it's great. No.
And they're both at Port Patrick?
Port Patrick, yeah. Port Patrick, yeah. And if you find a member to play with, it's priceless. Yeah, it's great.
How do they put markers for those blind shots? They have like stakes for each hole?
Usually there's a little stone or a marker post. Sometimes if it's The more sophisticated, like the hinge, I think will move the stone according to where the pin is. that's OCD, but that's okay.
Does it give you like markers of how far? Like, how do you have any kind of idea?
Well, you know how many yards the hole is, right? So let's say it's 180 yards. So you hit your 180-yard club shot, and just try to hit it over the white stone, and cross your fingers and walk up the hill with your heart pumping. How close am I? How close am I?
Yeah.
And then voila, there it is.
Nice. Well, what advice, we're going to change it up a little bit. What advice do you have for first time goers to the British Isles?
Well, the first timer wants to play the big courses, and that's where you guys come in, because it's hard to get on those, Yeah. So when I started off, we wrote letters, snail mail letters. You believe that? Yeah, that's right. I started out in October.
Yeah, we heard that.
The letters, and we played usually the last week in May. So, but now secret's out. So all the big boys want to play the big courses. You got your Oakmont boys and your Wingfoot guys that want to play all the big courses. So that's what they want to do, and that's fine. I think that's what you should do. But on your tours, if you can throw in a weak horse or hidden gem, and that's good too. And if your tour group has the ability to arrange a match with members or Ryder Cup, boy, that is special, and that's hard to do too.
Yeah.
So that's the advantage of a tour group, and I would recommend a Gore-Tex top and Gore-Tex pants, and because you never know what's going to happen over there. Leave your umbrella at home, because the wind, when it rains, will take an umbrella down. I remember on the first time I went there, we came back from Scotland, played a few courses around Dublin, and one of the courses we played was Port Marnock, and they had just finished the Irish Open a week before we were there. So this fellow tried to save a few bucks, so he sprayed Scotchgard on his little bucket hat, right? So we're out there on the 6th or 7th hole, and it is a monsoon. And my Gore-Tex hat was fine. So he's soaked. So he just walked in, he didn't finish the 9. And the rain was so thick, it came down in sheets, just sheets and sheets. So be prepared for the worst. But by God, if you paid your money, there's no refund. So play the course, even if it's wind and rain. And that way, when the British Open comes on, they're playing that stuff, you can say, hey, that's the kind of stuff I played in.
Right.
So
well, Bob, it's funny. Everyone we talk to, everyone Hayden asked that question of, has the same response: buy a good rain suit.
Yeah, every single one. It's funny. And you mentioned Oakmont. Did you hear what happened today? Their clubhouse burned down.
Oh no!
Oakmont Country Club. It's been all over the news. No. It's completely engulfed.
Yeah, massive fire.
Completely.
Yeah.
Wow, that is such a shame. I was so lucky to play there about 7 or 8 years ago, and we stayed in the little dormy house there. We played a couple of days, and just a wonderful experience. That's very sad.
The clubhouse is very old. Well, hopefully they rebuild even bigger and have an amazing new clubhouse. So. But I hope nobody got hurt. I didn't see exactly.
I heard they got everybody out. I didn't hear if anyone got hurt, but I thought they said everyone was able to be evacuated.
Good. So we talked about first-time visitors, and we've talked about all the golf courses. Let's talk about some off-course activities that you think are must-dos for the British Isles. What are a couple of your favorite ones?
Well, after we finish golf, we would usually have a pint, usually a lager, sometimes single malt.
That's your activity, drinking? That's the number one.
we have a lager, you know.
Yeah, of
A
course.
lager. Sometimes I have an orange squash. You know what an orange squash is?
No.
It's like a drink with lemonade and orange. It's not alcoholic, but yeah, an orange squash is good, especially on a cold day. And
Nice.
you know, I know I was telling Jeff this. That, my one friend and I played a match with the captain and the vice captain at Cochrane Castle, which is near Glasgow. And they're lovely people, and we got there after our first round, so we had lunch, and they were hospitable, treated us to lunch, and that was our fourth or fifth day on our tour. We go usually for 10 days, play about 20 courses. And so we had usually in our lunch have a fish sandwich and a bowl of soup. And honest to God, the first 3 days were lentil soup. I'm thinking, what is this special lentil soup in Scotland? So anyway, so we're sitting there, and the waitress comes up. What do you want? Oh, we'll just have some soup and a sandwich, a fish sandwich, whatever you have. And so what comes out but lentil soup again? Oh, I almost broke out laughing. It was so much fun. But it was a warm day, and my friend was overweight, so he was pretty thirsty. So we got to the 14th hole, close to the clubhouse, and we were on the tee waiting. So he asked the captain, is there a place I can get a nice cold drink? He says, yeah, in the clubhouse. So he walks over to the clubhouse, walks to the pro, and he says, I'd like to have a cold Coke. And he said, okay, well, those are cold. And he points down on the cement floor. And he said, I said, a cold Coke. He said, well, those are cold down there. That was it. Scots are precious people. And but I will tell you another story, which is from the 14th tee. And my son John and I played that round, and the wind was pretty ferocious. And we played with Turnberry with a very good friend of mine, a dentist, who a lovely person, and he was the captain. In fact, he was captain when Tom Watson almost won the Open when he hit that beautiful 8-iron shot that bounced over the green and couldn't get up and down. But anyway, it was very windy that day. And as you know, if you stay in the hotel there up on the hill with the bagpiper, at least in those days, that was about $300, $400 a night, which included a round of golf, at least one round. Well, it was so windy, and when I'm talking wind, this was 40 to 60 mile per hour winds. The course was vacant. In fact, Norrie said they played a medal that morning, and a medal is where you count every single stroke. All the putts are in the hole. And he said he couldn't believe it took 4.5 hours to play a medal. Now, for Americans, 4.5 hours is a normal round of golf. But these guys are in this huge wind. Shots are in the deep rough, having to go back to the tee because they can't find their ball because it's not a hazard. And so it took forever. So 3 of us are on the first tee, right? And it's really windy. So John tees off, and we're playing, you can't play a championship tee, it's playing the back tees. And so John hits a low screamer, goes all the way up, hits the wooden bowling ball pin for the forward tee, bounces up in the air, comes back 20 yards over his head. And Norrie said that's the first time he'd ever seen somebody with a longer second shot than his first shot in that hole. Oh. So then we get to the lighthouse hole, and Norrie says the kiss of death. He says, well, Bob, I know it's windy here, but at least it's not raining. I said, Norrie, why did you say that? And the rain comes down, and it was so loud and so windy, you could not hear. It was amazing for 2 holes. It was like survival golf, just hit it and hope. But those are precious experiences. And if the guys on your tour have that kind of weather, play in it, because you know what? You're not going to have that experience in the USA. You're going to be in the clubhouse.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, are you you still playing a lot of golf nowadays?
No, I had.
He played today, if that's any.
I did play today, and I had played kind of a lengthy course actually. There wasn't a lot of grass on these fairways, but I don't play as much as I used to for a number of reasons. When my wife died, 2007, that took my heart out of competition. And I'm kind of ashamed to say, but I played mostly for competition in those days. I was definitely OCD, and I practiced a lot, way too much. And I think when you turn, you try to turn. That puts pressure on the spine. So I developed a long, what they call a bone spur, like a long needle that stuck into my sciatic nerve 2 years ago, and couldn't walk. So did an MRI, and they took it out. A little neurosurgeon did a little operation, little slit, took out the bone spur. And of course, he said it wasn't due to golf, but I'm sure it was, all that practice.
Yeah.
So he said, it's not good to do running marathons anymore. It's not good to play golf anymore. So I'm thinking, okay. So I waited 9 months for the golf. And so I play once or twice a week, but I play for strictly camaraderie now. Maybe I should have done that a long time ago. I don't know. Strictly camaraderie.
Are your kids still playing?
Oh yeah. We have an annual Kroeger Cup, which I won a couple of years ago, believe it or not. And they've all kinds. They hit a 270, 280, and Michael was first team Division I in Ohio. That means you're in the top 5 in the state tournament, which was
That's awesome.
it's a big accomplishment.
Awesome. Do you have anything left?
I know that. Oh, go ahead, Caden. I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask, do you have anything left on your golf bucket list?
No, I don't have any. No, I don't. No, I still enjoy the game, believe it or not. And I play. I used to belong to a nice club in Cincinnati, but that changed and got modernized. So
What was the course called? I might have played it.
Kenwood Country Club. It's in Madeira, just a little bit south of Montgomery. But anyway, I won't get into that because I had a lot of great experiences there with the boys and everything. So no, I now play at a course where a very influential golfer hit the very first tee shot. In fact, his tournament wins created this concept of the Big Four. He won the 2 British amateur tournaments and the 2 American amateur tournaments. Yeah.
Bobby Jones?
Bobby Jones hit the first tee shot in 1938. And of course, designed by William Diddle, who was the first president of the American Golf Course Architects Association. It's a lovely golf course.
What's it
It's a
called?
county golf course. It's called Sharon Woods. And
I've played. I played there when I was a kid, but that's still part of the county park system, right?
it's a county golf course, and you can walk it, which I enjoy doing. So we play there at least once or twice a week. And
I
it's just
grew up
fun.
playing another county course, Winton Woods,
Yes, it's still there. Yeah,
and
Still
then Glenview got built when I was in my early teens. So
yeah. They've got 3 9-holes.
I worked at California Golf Course for 3 summers
Yep.
when I played there, or when I was going to Cincinnati.
Yep. Played 3 some tournaments there, father-son tournaments there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of
I'm
good golf.
surprised you're not a member at Makatiwa, which is
That's a great old course. There's no question about that. A great old course. Yeah. It
well.
really
I
is.
think the connection to Donald Ross and the small greens, and
Yes. You're right. You're right. Well, see, I paint almost every day now, Jeff.
So you've given up hunting and you've given up or playing less golf, but it's good to know that you're still drinking single malts and painting.
Oh, God, I get a single malt every birthday, and I've got about 30 different brands at home. And I drink if somebody comes over, but I'm not a closet drinker. So
Yeah,
if you need help, I can come over.
well, I'll tell you, my favorite is Lefroy, and that is from Islay. And in the streams on Islay, it's brown water. Now, when my friend and I were playing there, and this is brown water. Now, it's not murky, brown. It's clear brown. But he fills his empty water bottle with this stuff and drinks something. What? Well, it's pure water, but it's brown. But it gives a smoky taste to single malt. So many of the brands on Islay have this smoky taste, and Lefroy does. And it's got the royal patronage. I mean, if you're royal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Lefroy. It's a little peaty for me.
It's too smoky for you. Yeah.
Yeah. We have a friend, Hayden and I, a guy named, he's been on this podcast, Dale Schmitz. He's got a collection of whiskeys. And a funny thing happened, Bob. The way that just as aside, when we asked, how did you fall in love with playing golf over there? I told you earlier, I took my dad over for his 60th birthday. But the way that came about, I was reading Sports Illustrated and they had an ad in there, and it was a double entendre. It said, treat your dad to a few rounds in Scotland, rounds of golf and rounds of scotch. And it was by J&B. And when I was living in Los Angeles at the time, and I hung that up in my office, and I said, I'm taking my dad to Scotland. That's what spurred the thought. So
That's nice.
Until I could save the money, and then like you, I planned everything myself. So about 7 months ago, I decided I want to find that. I couldn't find my original copy. So I found a copy of the ad on eBay. And while I was looking, I found these tins from the late 70s by Glenn Livett. And they had famous golf courses on there on the front. And it was a tin that you would open, and there was a little cardboard container inside of there. And then there would be a bottle of their scotch. So I got Hayden one with St. Andrews on the front. I got my other son-in-law and my son one. Another friend, I got one. But my friend with the scotch collection, I got him all 6. So he's got them on display. So they're a little taller than a whiskey bottle.
That's nice.
And
I think you got me Troon.
Oh, I got you Troon?
Mm.
Well, I think the other thing, you told a funny story about your son. I'll tell a funny story about my son-in-law. We have an annual Christmas match, like the day before Christmas. Hayden and I play my 2 buddies. And because Hayden's such a good golfer, Dale picks him, and Dick and I are partners. And we lost 2 years ago, Dick and I. So the idea was we have to buy dinner. That's the bet. It's also the night, because it's the day before Christmas or 2 days before Christmas, we exchange gifts. And so the 3 of us, not Hayden, we give each other a bottle of whiskey. So we go to the restaurant, we exchange. They allow us to pour our whiskey at the table after dinner, right?
Oh, lucky you.
So Hayden has never had whiskey from Scotland. So he has some. He's had a couple, and he says, who's got the closest house to here? Right. So we go to Dale's house. Hayden sampled every whiskey there.
Probably. That's why I said if you need help drinking some of your single malts, I can.
I've got a question.
The story's not over. We come back to my house. He tasted all of mine. Hayden was not well the following day.
I had to try all the scotch.
I've got a question, Hayden.
Yeah.
Can you tell me how you spell whiskey?
Oh, that's a good question.
Is this a trick
question? How do you spell? No, well, not really. How do you spell Scottish whiskey? Whiskey. W-H. Go ahead.
I-S. K-E-Y.
That's American whiskey.
Okay.
That's Irish whiskey. But Scottish whiskey has no E in it.
Yep.
It's W-H-I-S-K-Y. Okay. I'm sorry. I put you on the spot.
No, it's okay.
No. Hey, it's funny. It's funny about that, Bob, because I just posted on our social media the other day about, I found a beautiful picture of a bottle of Glenfiddich, and it looks like the Tay River is behind it, and there's a cigar next to it. And I was talking about this being a whiskey, and of course, I spelled it correctly because I know, Irish whiskey has an E, American whiskey has an E, but Scottish whiskey has no E. So I'm very cognizant of that. When I'm talking about Irish whiskey, I put the E in there, and Scottish whiskey, no E.
Can I tell another story?
Absolutely.
Okay. This is about another course that played, and you probably want to include it on some of your tours, London Links. And
Heard of it.
a friend of mine, Gordon, was a member there, and his wife, Liz, was a member of London Ladies, which is a 9-hole course. And Liz was a very good golfer, low single digit club champion. So Gordon was kind of comedian, kind of a male chauvinist, liked to drink maybe a little too much, but anyway, he's long gone, but he's a great guy. So I don't dishonor his memory. But he was telling us about the Ely, E-L-I-E, Ely Golf Club. I know you've played it, Jeff. Yep. And he told a story about a man and his dog and his wife walking down the path directly into the clubhouse. And the guard that was there said, "I'm so sorry, sir, but your wife is not permitted to enter through the front of the clubhouse. She'll have to go around all the way to the back to enter. But you and your dog are permitted to go in there." And Gordon not telling that in front of Liz. And of course, the reason why she couldn't, because that goes directly into the men's locker room. It's an old-fashioned clubhouse. Oh. So on the other hand, the London Ladies is a little 9-hole course right there. In fact, you should play it sometime you're over there. There's a standing stone in the middle of one of the fairways, like Stonehenge, big old standing stone. Yeah. Well, there's anyway. There's no facility for men. If you have to go to the bathroom, you go around back to a portalet. That's called payback, Gordon.
I love it.
Well, I remember in your book about London Links, old Tom designed that. And if I'm not mistaken, those first 2 holes are his original holes, right? Which are fantastic holes.
That's right. Right along
I've got one more.
Yeah.
You mentioned David Hamilton twice. Again, this has got to be at least 25 years ago, maybe 30. I bought his book, and I think it was called Scotland Golf or Scotland Home of Golf, something like that.
That's right.
And
forward
on
by
the cover,
Sean Connery.
Right, exactly.
Forward by Sean Connery, yeah.
And the front of this had a beautiful picture of a par 3 over a big cavernous cove. And it took me a year to find out where that was, and it was Durness. Have you played Durness?
I've not played up that far, no.
Whoa! I've got one course you haven't played. Wow. Well, that's one. If you ever get back over, that's one that there's nobody there. It's a single track road for 60 miles with sheep, and literally, if another car's coming, they've got turnouts and.
Yeah, that's right. The turnouts.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very cool. Well, Bob, we can't thank you enough. This was fantastic.
I enjoyed it.
It's fun. It's absolutely fantastic to have you. I know all the listeners are going to enjoy the stories and your perspective on links golf in Scotland and throughout the British Isles. And thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
For sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Hayden, awesome. And thank you, Jeff.
It's awesome meeting somebody that's played more links golf than Jeff. So that was nice. Thanks again to Bob for being on the podcast with us. That was just a pleasure. I don't think I'll ever meet anybody that's played as much links golf as he has, and the stories that he has are amazing. Thank you again to him for coming on, and Jeff for being here with us as well. If you enjoyed the video, please share it, and we'll see you next week.